Welcome to page 156 of Anatomy Coloring Book. This is Dr. Stephen Harkins. Reproductive system, the testes. Let's take a closer look at the testes. As we spoke of before, as we learned before, the testes is the male reproductive organ that produces sperm. Surrounding it on the posterior and superior is the epididymis, where it's stored, and the ductus deferens. Coming outside and then through the abdominal wall and into the prostate gland, where it becomes the ejaculatory duct here and joins the urethra, where the sperm is ejected through the urethra out and the penis. The seminal vesicle providing nutrients and fluids, as well as the prostate gland. And before that even happens, the bulbourethral gland sends a fluid out there, a lubricatory fluid, before ejaculation even occurs. All right, now let's talk more specifically about the testes. As I said, the male organ. So let's look closer. The outer layer is called the tunica albuginea. This is the outer fibrous tough layer that surrounds the testes, that makes up the outer layer of the testes. And branching off of the tunica, separating, dividing the testes here into sections, is another layer is called the septum. And this just creates sections where what is called the seminiferous tubules lie. These are the tubules where the sperm is manufactured. The seminiferous tubules. And the seminiferous tubules produce the sperm, and when they do, you notice how these ducts, these septum, go from broad to narrow, and they narrow out into a place called the rete testis, this area here. And this is where all the tubules meet, the seminiferous tubules, all the sperm that's created in these tubules, that's where they collect. And before they are, and so that's called the rete testes. The rete testes. Before they are ejected through the efferent duct into the epididymis. The epididymis is a place where the sperm are stored, and the epididymis has sections. It's got a head, a body, and a tail. The head is up here. The body here. And the tail down here. You can see these little squiggly tubules, tail. Eventually, as you know, the sperm are ejected out into the ductus deferens. And recall that the ductus deferens has a muscular wall that contracts and pushes the sperm upward and out of the epididymis and into the ejaculatory, on its way to the prostate gland and the ejaculatory duct. And that's the ductus deferens. Now, let's take an even closer look. Let's take a section here. Here we have a section of the tubules, the seminiferous tubules right here. You can see that there's a hole in the middle, a lumen, as it's called, a lumen, And here's a section right here of that lumen. And on the outside, well, so sperm are created in a layer called spermatogonium. Spermatogonium. And that is these initial sperm cells right here. These are called spermatogonium. What happens is they are human cells with, like all of the other cells of your body, that carry 46 chromosomes, all of your DNA, your genetic material in these cells. And what happens is those spermatogonium divide through mitosis into what was called a primary spermatocyte. The primary spermatocyte. That's these cells right here. And then something interesting happens after when these spermatocytes divide. These spermatocytes divide, each of them containing 46 chromosomes, like every human cell, and they divide into cells that only have 23 chromosomes. 23 chromosomes. And these 23 will meet with the egg, one of these will meet with the egg, the female egg, and will be fertilized, and you will have, once again, 46 chromosomes. So they'll meet with an egg. The sperm cell will meet with an egg cell from the female and add together and become 46 once again. So this process is called meiosis, when the primary divides, the primary spermatocyte divides into the secondary spermatocyte. That's what these are called, secondary spermatocytes. And they, through a process called meiosis. M-E-I-O-S-I-S. And up here, a 46 chromosome cell divided into another 46 through mitosis. But when it went from the primary to the secondary, it's meiosis, creating two cells of 23 chromosomes. So these, you can see the layer, the spermatogonium, dividing outward, or I should say inward, toward the lumen, or the open space of the middle of the hole here, of the middle of the tubule. And of course, you know what's going to happen. They're going to travel down the tubule and into the rete, testes, etc. So as they travel out, they divide and divide again until these secondary spermatocytes lodge sort of in the space here of the lumen, and just on the edge of the lumen here, and they become what are called spermatid. This is where they start to grow a little bit of a tail here, because they're going to need to swim, so to speak, in through the vaginal cavity into the female reproductive system to find the egg. Now, when they are called spermatid at this point. When they sort of release and pop off of there, they're called spermatozoan. This is where they become spermatozoan. Spermatozoan. And this is where they develop a head and a tail. This head has two parts, the acrosome and the nucleus. The nucleus, of course, contains what? The nucleus contains the genetic material, those 23 chromosomes. And this head, this acrosome, is on top of the nucleus and covers the nucleus. So in here you will find the genetic material, 23 chromosomes. The tail is made of the neck here, the middle piece, and what is called the mitochondrion. The mitochondrion provides the energy for flagellation, or for the ability for this spermatozoan, the sperm cell, to move. And then the end piece of the tail. Excuse me, this is the principal piece, and then the end piece here. Now, the Sartori, there are other cells. They're not only spermatogonium or spermatogonia cells. There are other cells as well in this area, supporting cells. These supporting cells, Sartori cells. These cells in here, just adding support to, and providing nutrients and anything that is needed for the process of spermatogenesis. The basement membrane, of course, is this layer right here. It would be kind of this outer layer of the seminiferous tubule. And one important another function of the testes is the production of testosterone. And the testosterone is created in the interstitial cells of Leydig. And that's these cells right here, kind of in the outer layer of the seminiferous tubule. And they, as I said, produce testosterone. Testosterone is a hormone that is important in males for the development and for the process of this, for all these things to occur. This hormone is needed in order to stimulate the development of all these ducts and glands that in the entire system. Testosterone is needed, and that testosterone is produced in the interstitial cells of Leydig, right here and here and here. So they're in the interstitial cells. In other words, they're not part of the spermatogenic cells creating sperm. They're different cells. And then, of course, that testosterone has to have a place to go from the interstitial cells of Leydig. Where does it go? It goes through the blood vessels up here, and through the capillaries that are found within the testes, and they'll make their way through the blood, through the bloodstream, and throughout the body. And that represents page 156 of Anatomy Coloring Book. This is Dr. Stephen Harkins.